Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good morning to everyone. My name is Shabir Chauhan, the chairman of Amal, and we're delighted that you could join us on a very, very important webinar. I think before starting, if I can just open it up with a small dua. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdina siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim, Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. I mean, we're delighted to have so many participants joining us, and I can safely say that I recognize one of the names. We have a participant all the way from London who has also joined us this morning. So thank you very much for people to attend this very important webinar. Just some background on Amal, the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers. It was established in the 1980s by some very dedicated people. And the association itself is not just for Muslims, it's open to everyone. In fact, we have a number of members who are not of the Islamic faith. And one of the main reasons for Amal is to be established is to have a look at some of the issues relating to legal and accounting aspects that's affecting the Muslim community. We're currently involved and spent a lot of time on the marriage bill, and we've made a submission for that. Also involved in a significant number of outreach programs. And if you do have the time, if you can participate in Amal activities, we will appreciate that quite significantly. Membership fee is very small, about 200 rands a year. And also there's a reduced fee for article clerks and for students who are studying at university. Please have a look at our website, amal.co.za, for more of the information on the activities of our organization. Today's topic on the importance of succession planning in family businesses is something that's extremely relevant. So I think if I can introduce both speakers, and one will follow after the other. The first is, well, both speakers are from PricewaterhouseCoopers, ex-partners, very, very experienced in the fields. The first is Gaff, Osman, who is retired as a partner from PricewaterhouseCoopers, previously with Farajina, until they merged with PwC. And he is presently on a number of boards and also a consultant to a significant number of family businesses. He is also involved in a significant number of charity work and serves on a lot of NGOs. I think Gaff's reputation, everyone knows him quite well. And we're looking forward to his presentation today. The second speaker is A.K. Essack, who I've worked with some almost 30 years ago at PricewaterhouseCoopers. He retired as a partner, but at one stage he was also the managing partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers in the Durban office. Significant amount of experience in dealing with family businesses. And I think when I joined way back in 1986, he headed up at that stage the Businesses Services Division at Coopers and Lybrand, as it was called. And he currently serves as an advisor on a number of family businesses. All I can tell you is that both these gentlemen, in my interaction with the clients where they are involved in, they're adding significant amount of value to these clients. Gaff, if I can hand over to you first, probably running until about half past 10.
Assalamu alaikum to all. Welcome to everyone this morning on this very important seminar. As you all know, succession planning is nothing new. It's been with us for ages, and we grapple with it all the time. This morning, we're going to be talking about succession planning, specifically on family businesses in private companies. We're not going to be talking about the big companies where you have lots of shareholders and a board of directors, and the board of directors take care of their issues. But specifically for family companies, family-owned companies in private companies. And as you know, most private companies in family businesses, 60 or 80% of family members are involved in the business. So from that point of view, just like to say that from my own personal experience over the last 5 or 8 years, and the clients that I consult with, most of them have moved in some form or the other towards succession planning. And I see that although it might not be a structured one, an informal one, but very, very helpful. People are seeing the benefits, and one can see that more and more young people are getting involved in family businesses and taking an active part. So there is a forward movement in succession planning. Although there are many old school companies where succession planning hasn't happened. And I think that's what we want to talk about. And obviously, if there are no succession planning, there is a danger of the business failing, profitability going down, and you can have problems and disputes and conflicts within the family itself. So to make it easy, I felt that maybe I sketch out a scenario for you, and maybe from this scenario, we can see the pros and cons of succession planning. Let's say, for argument, we take a company that was formed by the father, and he had 4 sons. And the father passes on, and the big son takes control of the business. And one of the 3 sons is a doctor. He's not involved in the business. Another 2 brothers are involved in the business. And everything is going rosy. The big brother runs everything. The younger brothers are there in the business, but not very active. And there's no conflict. There's no issues. But that's not the end of it. Because as the business grows, there'll be more and more people coming in. And you'll start having conflicts, you'll start having disputes. So now, let's take a scenario where the big brother who's running the business brings in his son-in-law into the business. Then what happens? And then the sons bring in their sons into the business. And then you start having people comparing what they take home, what cars they drive, what drawings they have, and the issues will start, the conflicts, the disputes. So as a result, something has to happen early to avoid this sort of scenario. And then again, going back to the very first line I said, where the brother with 2 other brothers are in the business, whose fault is it that there is no succession planning? Is it the main guy or is it the other 2 guys? And you make your choice. My view is that everyone's at fault because nobody is taking the initiative to see what is going wrong, who's going to become the number 1, and if somebody passes on, what's going to happen. If the big brother passes on, then you're going to have a tussle for the chairmanship of the company, and you'll have the 2 brothers fighting, and there you have it, lawyers, accountants, attorneys, all going to be making money, and the business will suffer. So the idea is to get it right at the beginning. And who's going to identify it? First of all, you can do it internally. If you do it internally, obviously, there are sentiments, there's respect, people don't want to confront the big brother, and you're going to have issues like that. But if they're all open-minded people, and you can control it and sort it out internally, then well done. But as you all know, it doesn't happen so easily. And I think it's important for you as an accountant or an attorney or a trusted business advisor to intervene and help the family to resolve these issues. And I think that's where an external independent advisor is almost inevitable, that you're going to have somebody on board. I know that AK serves on some boards and I serve on some boards, and it's very helpful because you are neutral. You say it the way it should be said. You don't be afraid of saying who's wrong, and you make the decision. So I think the scenario that I painted out for you is they got to resolve it either internally or externally. And if you go externally, you've got to have somebody who is neutral, not close to anybody, and I'm sure everybody has to agree on this person and move on. When you have disputes, when you have conflicts, then you're going to have all sorts of issues like running to arbitration, mediation. I know of court cases that are still running for 10 years and 5 years where family haven't resolved their issues. And I think it's vitally important that one puts this right at the beginning. If you got this thing right, then you have to follow through. What is the process to follow through? And that is to have meetings, minutes, action items to be implemented. No use taking a decision today, and next week when you come to a meeting, nothing has happened about the decision. Nothing has been implemented. There should be some decision. Should be some action item to say this is work in progress, or this can't happen, or it can happen. And you set out the ground rules. And I think the most important thing is communication. Once you communicate, you're transparent about every aspect of your business to the family members, there'll be less issues as you go along. Arising from this sort of resolution of the family business, one can then go on to look at the growth. And obviously, you're going to start looking at a corporate level, that you're going to be more corporatizing your business. And then a very important aspect of the business is the governance of the business. And I think we have some slides for you on the governance. Very quickly, I'll just take you to the slides. You can see what is governance all about. Okay, you can see that governance starts when the ownership and the business separate, and you're getting external people to run your business. And you as an owner, you play a more mentorship role, a more stewardship role in trying to run this business. And with governance, it even applies to directors. Directors got to follow the governance of the rules of the company. You cannot have your own rules about how you're going to do things. For example, if the company rules are that you will fill petrol in your car, then you'll fill petrol in your car and not in your wife's car. Simple as that. So governance has to be adhered to strictly. And by you setting the example, everybody behind you will follow suit. Succession planning doesn't only apply to the number one person or the MD, but it applies at every level of your business. Today, with technology, we are growing very fast. You have a CEO, you have a CFO, you have a IT department, you have HR. And in all these departments, you've got to have a backup. You've got to have a number two. You've got to have somebody who can take over, because staff, they can drop you at a drop of a hat. As soon as they get a big offer, they're gone. And you can't be in that position where you don't have a backup. So succession planning starts right at the top, comes right to the bottom, in where you make sure that every department has a backup, a follow-up, so that there's no problem in the event if anybody leaves. Shamil, next slide. Just to summarize where we are with governance, as you can see, the shareholders will own the ship and define its purpose. The board of directors will steer the ship in the direction it wants it to go, and management and employees will run the company, implement, row the ship. And hopefully, if you follow all these rules, the business will move from success to success. Now, why do businesses fail? Now, before we even get to this point, when you talk about getting your business into a proper corporate structure, or even if you talk about, let's get to a proper business plan or a proper succession plan, there'll always be resistance. There are resistance. People will say, we don't need this. We have a good family. We have a good relationship. It'll cost too much money. But as the business grows and more people come into the business, you'll see that the resistance doesn't pay anymore. So there are reasons why businesses fail, and we have listed quite a lot of businesses that fail. Some apply to succession planning and others don't. But just for information, we have listed quite a lot of them. The very first one, as you can see, is the post-succession planning, lack of trusted advisors. Advisors can be anybody, can be your accountant, can be your accountant, attorneys, can be your advocates, can be even your close family friends who have other businesses, but you are very close to them and they will advise you. I'm sure people ask you for advice on their businesses, and likewise, you should be asking them and sharing some information. Family conflict, we spoke about family conflict, how family conflicts can arise, how issues can arise, where disputes come about. There's no ways that there's not going to be any conflict. There'll always be conflict. There'll always be disagreement, but we always have to agree to disagree. We're always going to have different versions from different generations. And nowadays, our youngsters are going to universities, they are graduating into various fields. They're coming into our businesses. And yes, we have to accept what they have learned at varsity. They come with new ideas, new technology, and we shouldn't be not giving them a chance. Give them the confidence, give them the break, and I think you'll see the benefits as you go along. I have seen it in the companies that I work with, where the youngsters have come through and they have really showing a great improvements into the business and giving big help to the family elders. We spoke about governance challenges, and as I said, that you as a director or a main shareholder got to adhere to governance yourself so that the others follow example. Exclusion of family members outside the business. This is a bit of a sore point. I've seen many family members who are not involved in the business, but somehow when their father died, he left a will and he's a shareholder in the business, and they exclude this person, and then you have disputes, and it's best that you sit and resolve. A person who's not in the business is shareholding right at the front when everything is hunky-dory, everything is rosy. Coming back to when everything is rosy, one of the very important things in family business is to have a shareholders agreement. And if you don't have a shareholders agreement, you can have problems. But no use having a shareholders agreement and you're running around to sign a shareholders agreement when there's a problem. Nobody's going to sign a shareholders agreement when there's a problem. So when everything is fine and rosy and everybody's happy, you put in on the table a shareholders agreement, debate it, sign it. So if there's any issue, everything is in writing, how people can be retire, emigrate, or anything like that. There are various other reasons for Shabir, can we move to the next one? For why business would fail. And as I said, some of them will be talking about no strategic planning, no business plan. And eventually, sometimes there are certain issues beyond our control where businesses fail. And a very typical and topical thing is COVID today. Unfortunately, nobody expected COVID. We were not prepared for COVID. And those of you who are involved in the hospitality and the travel business and in the building industry will know the impact that it's had, the ripple effect it has on various other businesses. So some businesses are controllable, some problems, and some are not controllable. And by no means, in my view, most of the items that we have listed there are controllable. It's our own doing that we don't get it right. And one of the other issues you'll see in the next slide, I think, and it links to business succession planning, is where intermingling of finances, not separating personal expenses from a business expense. This is a common thing in family businesses, where people want to put in their family expenses through the business. And then while things are good, everybody allows it. And when things are bad, then it's a detrimental to the business. I'll just give you one simple example. When a grandchild in the family gets married, the business will pay for all the expenses because the business is doing well and it can afford it. But 5 years down the line, another grandchild gets married, the business can't afford it. And then the parent will come and fight with you and say, but my other brother's son got married, everything was paid for him, why not for me? So they are forced to do it, but it's to the detriment of the business and it will affect the business. So it's very important that from day one, you separate business expenses from your personal expenses. I know I consulted a company where the directors take anything from the business, it's recorded or paid for in cash from his pocket. There's no way taking anything that you want and walking away because you're a director or you're a partner. So those are the disciplines has to be brought into the business from day one. Can we go to the next slide? Coming to some practical issues, as you know, corporatization is a journey. Even succession planning is a journey. It can't happen overnight. You've got to start it and go take it in stages. You don't want to upset a guy who has run the business for you for 10 years and you're going to unseat him. There's no ways you can do that. You have to do it in a gradual way, in an amicable way. I think another very good idea for the family to do is that when they have meetings is to rotate the chairmanship. In this way, you're giving everybody a chance to be ahead of a meeting and to control a meeting, and you're giving him the confidence and you're building him up to one day when he is in that position to do so. Also, it's very important that when you meet some important people like your bankers or your auditors, that you have your other brothers with you. And in that way, you're showing them respect, you're showing them they are part of the business. And in that way, it brings harmony in the business. There's no secret in the family business. There shouldn't be any secret in the family business. This second point, failure of family businesses after the third generation, I think we hear this all the time. And I can tell you, with my 40 years of experience, I never seen a business going beyond the third generation. Really, I really mean it. I know PwC did the research and they say only 15% of businesses go over third generation. Yet, some of you might have heard Yaqub Beg's seminar many years back, and he said that in India, businesses go up to 7 or 8 generations. And here in South Africa, it's quite true that we don't go beyond the third generation. And maybe some of you guys and some of your clients can start proving us wrong on that. The next important point is the importance of appointing a consultant. We spoke about that. We said you must get an outside advisor, a neutral person to bring about a balance on your board. And this is working well for lots of people. I know lots of retired accountants are consulting. We do share our views with people as we meet them, and they seem to be all doing very, very well. I just want to touch on a little other point here. I did a presentation some time back where Mohammed Wahid was doing a leadership course to youngsters, all under 30. And I was asked to do a session with them as a guest speaker. And after that session, two young guys came up to me and said, you know, Mr. Osman, my father doesn't give us the free rein to do what we want to do. And he's always at our back and checking on what we're doing. And this is not a common, it's a common thing. And I had to monitor these guys and counsel these two young guys. They say, look, have patience. Your father knows what he's doing. And slowly, you've got to get to him. Slowly tell him to give you a small piece of the work, show him what the results are, and I'm sure he'll have confidence in you. So to people who are out there, business people, do encourage your youngsters, do encourage them, give them the confidence to run your business. We all make mistakes. There's always a learning curve. So it's never too late. While you're alive, while you're in the business, while you're active, get your sons, get your nephews involved in the business. Some of the other points there are, we have to prepare a budget for succession planning and always have a session, a stress session from time to time. You know, you're having a stress session and doing your SWOT analysis and nothing happens after that. The implementation of whatever you do is very, very important. I've seen many, many times people do lots of things, but when it comes to implementation, they fail. I think I've said enough. Shabir, I'd like to touch on two very other important family issues, but not now, maybe in the end when we have time, which is not relating to succession planning, but more with family issue. I don't know whether I should say it now or later. Okay? The thing that I want to try planning, and it involves family, is, and I think it does come under succession planning as well. Real example where these people were clients in our office, and there were three brothers that had a very successful business. And within 5 years, all the sons came into the business. And another 2 years later, another three sons came into the business. So you had 9 people in the business already. So yet, one day you had 3 chicks being thrown out for salary, and 5 years later, you got 9 chicks thrown out. You had 3 cars full of petrol, now you got 9 cars full of petrol. And what has happened? The business couldn't sustain this sort of business, couldn't sustain this sort of cost. And what has failed in this business is that they didn't diversify. So my main point to everyone here is that get your clients to diversify. When you see that the business can't sustain so many family members, by diversifying, use your existing business as a synergy for other businesses. And something just comes to mind, and I'm not copying anybody about it. If you're selling tiles, then there are a lot of other synergies in the tile industry that you can do. Get your son to do manufacture tile fix. Get one son to start a tiling company where he actually does get people to tile. And while you're selling tiles, you are providing the extra service, the value-added service, and you expand your business that way. But if you do have the money, you can go into another venture, but diversify. Don't let everybody sit in the same business, because number one, you can't sustain the cost. And number two, the second part is that you're having capacity in the business which you're not utilizing. And the guys get lazy, and you'll find guys going to the gym, and you'll see guys playing golf, and things like that, and the business suffers in the end. So that was one issue. The other issue that I want to touch on is don't put all your eggs in one basket. And again, this is a real example of a situation that I had when I was in practice. And we were called in very, very late when this business was failing. And we went into this business, and we found that it was a shoe manufacturing business, had over 300 employees. The MD of the company, his brothers and his nephews and his sons were all actually sitting in the machine and making shoes and slippers and sandals. And they were supplying one buyer only, one chain store in Durban. And some of you guys who are my age will know the name that I'm going to tell you. It was Scotch shoes. Scotch shoes were everywhere. They were in Russell Street, West Street, Smith Street, London Arcade, Mercury Lane. They were everywhere, Scotch shoes. And these guys were only making shoes for Scots. And the MD of Scots was a guy called Des Scott, who had lots of osses, and he went into liquidation. And what happened? The poor guy in the shoe factory went into liquidation. When we were called in, his trucks were repossessed, his machines were repossessed, and we had 200 or 300 people unemployed. And they could have surely not put all the eggs in one basket. They could have seen that, why use talented people like his brothers and his sons to sew and make shoes when they could have been doing some bigger things like wholesaling shoes, or even creating their own chain stores in the little cities, because Scots were only big masses in Durban. You could have went to Richards Bay, or you could have went to Stanger, or you could have went to Potchefstroom to have your own chain stores. So if anything happened, you had another alternate means of supply. So I think those two other areas that I touched on, Shabir, is just as a seed for people. And I think we accountants and attorneys and business advisors who are all listening in see these things. And I think we have to bring it to the attention of our clients for the benefit of the community as well, for the benefit of people who are working for them, and to make sure that our businesses all grow from strength to strength.
Thank you very much for the information that you provided. I think there's a number of issues that we can identify. A number of issues that Gaff has mentioned, it's very relevant. For the organization that I'm working for, when you're doing applications for finance, one of the subcategories is succession planning. With the number of meetings that we go to, when you go and have meetings with clients, you'll immediately come to know whether a client has got a succession planning or not, depending on who he brings into the meetings, who's attending. You go to clients where, even if we go as bankers, we'll have 3, 4, 5 people sitting in the meeting to discuss issues. And for me, that's a very matured approach to succession planning, because it's not left just with the owner. And as I said, this is something that's quite important. Okay, I'm going to now hand you over to AK Essack, who will, while I call up the slides, you just have any opening comments, AK, and then I'll share the content of the slides. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thanks, Shabir. Thanks, Gaff. And welcome to all for attending. Okay, the topics I'm going to be covering is one, a basic introduction, why succession planning is difficult, especially in a family business, the ground rules for success, effective succession planning, some of the pitfalls which Gaff has covered will probably be covered again, and then a bit of a conclusion. The future of any success of family business dependent on the effective succession planning. I think the point I want to raise here is that it's different for each business, for each family. Each family's dynamics are different, the businesses are different. So there's no one size fits all situation for succession planning for businesses. The other point is that it's very emotional, this topic, because you're talking about the future of the business, future of the founder of the business, the family members, and often the founder doesn't want to talk about these things because he founded the business, he's very passionate about it, and he feels as long as he can carry on going, he wants to carry on with it. So he doesn't want to talk about succession plan. But as Gaff mentioned, if you don't discuss this thing and get this in place, you're looking for a disaster. Gaff also mentioned that most businesses fail after the third generation, and I think that is definitely the case. We've seen very few that carry on for a longer period. I look at a business as an amana to the family, and if everyone, each family generation looks at it on the basis that I'm going to leave it in a better place for the next generation, then I think you'll achieve a successful family business. But if you look at it on the basis that what can I get out of this business while I'm around, then it's a disaster. So I think you have to look at it as an amana, as a family inheritance, and something that you leave for future generations. Okay, next slide. The biggest problem you have in family business is entitlement of the family. Because I am the boss's son, or I am XYZ family member, I am entitled to be in the senior positions in the family business. That is often the biggest disaster that you have to overcome when you're talking about succession planning. It's not about who you are, it's what you can perform, how you can perform, and what you do in the business that's important. And this is, if you overcome this hurdle, often it's easier to talk about succession planning. But if you're talking about only because I'm so and so, I'm entitled to it, you're going to have serious problems with regard to succession planning. Often the founder is reluctant to or unable to give up the reins. He's passionate. He started the business. This is all he knows. He worked 7 days a week, and often it's not easy for him to give up. And there's that joke that we all know, we've all heard before, is that this father is on his deathbed, and all his sons are around the bed, and he opens his eyes and he looks around, and all his sons are there. And the first comment he makes is, "Who's running the business? Why you all are here?" That's the type of thing you talk about a founder. He lives for the business, and therefore it's very, very difficult for him to give it up. The next point is the favoritism of the founder. He often, amongst his sons or his nephews, he's got a favorite. Often it's someone who was the most senior, who's been in the business with him for a longer period of time. Or you're talking about someone who sort of, he's got the same mannerisms as him, the same way of thinking, and that person becomes the favorite of the founder and the heir apparent to the family business. He might not be the right person, but because he is the favorite, he normally succeeds, and that's where the tension in the business starts. So it's often important to keep these emotional issues out, and as Gaff mentioned, to get outside people to assist in that process enhances the value of this whole succession planning process. Then the next one is the future leader must be a family member theory. This has always been an issue, and often you don't find that the family businesses can keep good staff because they see a ceiling that I'll never become the CEO or the CFO or the COO of this business because I'm not part of the family. And I think this is critical for the success of business. If you've got a strong person who might not be a family member, but he is definitely the right candidate, you need to consider that person above the family members when you're talking about succession planning. I think this is now beginning to happen in a lot of family businesses in our community, where people outside of the family are being considered for senior positions. Family feuds amongst the next generation, especially if you go to third generation when there are no more brothers with the father, you are now talking about cousins, and it's not the same. I've seen it so many times, and that's where, because the point is, we are no more talking about immediate family, we are not talking a slightly distant family, because we are talking about cousins and not brothers. So family feuds are something else that happens normally second generation or third generation, but more so third generation when things are getting a bit distant. Often the big problem you have with the next point is no obvious choice in the family. You look around and you can't see an obvious choice to lead this family business. And how do you tell a father or the family members, you know what, I think we need to look outside. We don't have a candidate here who can run this business. It's not easy. It gets very emotional. But as Gaff said, when you got outsiders in that meeting, you can make those comments because we've got nothing to lose or gain in that discussion. We are honest about it and we'll tell it how it is. But sometimes you have to face reality and take that decision. Look, for this business to succeed and for the family to continue benefiting from it, we might have to look outside. Not easy, because when outsiders do come in, they'll find resistance. So it's a difficult decision, but it's something you have to sometimes consider. Too many chiefs, again, it's the same thing with the first point I had, entitlement. Everyone wants to have his say, has his own views, and you don't make progress because you get blocked all the time because everyone wants to have their way of running this business. Okay, the next one is some of the ground rules for success. I think Gaff covered some of them because these are normally the contentious issues. Separation of management from shareholding. The family can continue to be shareholders in the business, but they don't all have to be management in the business. So that's an important separation you have to always think about. If they are competent and if they can run it, well and good, management and shareholding can be the same, but it can't always be the same. Or if you don't have the right people, it might not be the same. Salary versus dividend. I think Gaff covered that. One important point is that if you've got a business and you've got two mouths that you're feeding, then it becomes four, then it becomes six, then it becomes nine, and the profitability often is not growing at the same rate. So now you've got so many different people that are drawing out of this business as a fixed overhead to the company, and yet the growth is not there in the business. So it's important to separate performance and reward versus your dividend. It's difficult again, but it's something you have to consider because dividend is based on profitability. If we can afford it, we've done well, we will share the profits out. Salary is based on what you are performing and what you are contributing to that business. If you can't give everyone the same salary for doing different and mundane work, because then it's going to be a recipe for a disaster. I've seen that in practice where something was done like that, where every family member was getting an equal salary for years. Times were good, it was fine. As soon as recession hit, now affordability becomes a concern, and you can't now give each family member that same amount of salary, which results in disaster. Family councils for dispute resolution, good idea. Again, getting a third party or outsiders, not one, maybe two, to assist the family founder or family members in sorting out dispute resolution and avoiding huge court battles and expending a lot of money in legal fees. Principle of best person for the job applied. I think I made that comment earlier. It may be a family member, preferably, but it may not be. Best person for the job means that you will make sure that the business comes first. Effective succession planning, what we're talking about. The next point, which I just mentioned, is business comes first. The important thing is don't put your priorities in the incorrect order. The business is the key. That's the cash cow that's generating the profits for the family to survive and to the family to have a lifestyle. And then to make sure that that continues, you have to make sure the business comes first. Work ethic, this is a serious problem. I think Gaff raised some of the points as well. Is, I don't know what it is, but the younger generation seem to enjoy life more than the older generation used to. They used to work 7 days a week, and whereas now it's about, I need my holidays, I need to go to the gym every day, I'll come to work about 10 o'clock and leave at about 3, I need to go and fetch my kids from school. All those issues are creeping into family businesses, which means that the work ethic is often neglected. And that results in the family business not performing and not being able to compete in the marketplace when things are fairly competitive out there. Gaff raised shareholders agreement, very important. Do it upfront, not when you got a dispute. So when you get a dispute, you can't now agree on anything. Whereas if you had rules of the game in a shareholders agreement, it makes a big difference because everything is in writing and everyone agreed to it. Okay, effective succession planning, impartiality of the decision making of a future leader. I think that covered to some extent. Look at everyone on its merit. Be impartial when you're taking that decision. Preferable to have non-family member to chair the process. What are the qualities that are required? Don't only look at varsity qualification. Look at interpersonal skills. The person leadership skills are all vital in being able to run the business into the future. So I think the qualities side of the future leadership of the business is very important. On that score is you might often want to do assessments, tests HR type of tests to assess the, whether the person has the skills to run this business. Does any family member possess these qualities to a large extent? That's what you're trying to first achieve. If not, then you may have to look outside. The most important thing is once you take a decision about leadership positions, there has to be a buy-in of the other family members. If not, you're going to get sideshows all along, everyone not listening to the leader because they haven't bought into the whole process or haven't accepted him as the leader. The favorite term today, step aside, we're hearing that every day. If a family member just cannot accept the leadership of the family business, who has been appointed, whatever, rather than stay inside the business and destroy it from within, it might be better to step aside and do something else. As Gaff mentioned, you might want to diversify, you might want to get him into do something else, but don't let him stay there and destroy a good thing in the family business. I'll give you an example. I had a client which we thought it was a simple thing. It was just a father, a son, and a daughter. And the daughter she was a professional, she wasn't in the business. So it was easy. There was only one successor to this whole thing. The son was going to get into the business and eventually take over. He goes to varsity, he gets graduated, he comes into the business, and the father decided it's best if he starts in all the different divisions within the business so he can learn all the different aspects of the business. And he starts doing that. And within a few years, you can see there's problems because although he was competent, he had huge interpersonal skill problems. He just couldn't work with people. He couldn't accept that someone knew more than him. And because he knew that he was going to be the future CEO of the company, he started destroying a good business. And what we had to do eventually is, after many years of trying to get him to change, which didn't succeed, we then took a part of the business, carved it out, and made him run that business on his own, and kept this family business intact, which was a highly profitable and continues to be a highly profitable business. Now, the decision wasn't easy, but we had to do it to save the business, which was the cash cow for the whole family, and just not for him. And it wasn't easy to then tell him that it's probably best if he steps aside and does something else. So all I'm saying is something might seem very easy, that this business didn't need a big succession plan because it was sort of made for us, but it didn't work out like that. As I pointed out, the next leader does not have to be family, preferably family because it's easier. But if you don't have the right individuals, you may have to look outside. Okay, some of the pitfalls to avoid: favoritism. Huge issue. Avoid it as far as you can. Look at individuals for their merit and not because of who they are. Corridor talk in family business is another major problem. Is that you, instead of sitting in the boardroom and taking decisions as a family together, most of the talking doesn't happen in the boardroom. It happens outside in the corridors, which is negative stuff. Whereas when you come to the meeting, nobody wants to say anything. So you have to stamp out those sort of things and make sure that you have family meetings, you have board meetings, and everyone contributes. They are given an opportunity to talk, and they must be able to view their opinions on it. As I mentioned in the previous example, bad attitude, aggression, those sort of things don't help in a family business. And if you've got individuals that they need help, you might as well get them help before they destroy something good. Discipline, again, especially with regard to drawings and salaries, huge issue. You need to have good, strong set of rules, and you apply them consistently and without any exception. If you do that, you find people will abide. But if you don't have good rules and if you don't apply them consistently, you're going to have problems, and there'll be ill discipline, and there's nothing you can do. Connection call is similar to favoritism. Um, as I mentioned earlier, earnings not based on role and performance. Um, you can't, it's nice if you can give everyone the same earnings, but it's not often possible because people are doing different levels of work, and it's, it's not going to be feasible to pay people the same amount of salary. You can reward them from dividends because that's the entitlement as a family member, but salaries must be based on performance. Business feeding, high lifestyle. This is a common problem. You know, people's lifestyles are so high that the business just cannot afford feeding those lifestyles. And as more and more family members come into the business, that cost is huge. And it's just not sustainable, especially if you're competing against non-family members, corporates outside who don't have that problem. You're going to find that you're going to come short. You're not going to be able to compete with these people. So he deserved the respect, but once he's appointed, you have to respect the leadership, follow instructions, otherwise it's a free for all. And then finally, as a conclusion, family businesses by their nature are very complex. They can be successful. They are successful if everyone is rowing that boat in the same direction. And I always tell to my clients, don't get rid of family businesses because the future job market is not going to be easy. If you want to keep your children occupied or in meaningful jobs, these family businesses are the ones that are going to give them employment. The market out there is not easy. Graduates are walking the streets without jobs. And you can see with corporates, the number of employees they had 5-10 years ago to the number of employees they got now is a huge difference because of technology and etc. Often you have family members saying, you know, I can get a better job outside. My advice is send your CV out, see what you get. If you get a phone call, you're lucky. So respect what you got. Make sure that you make shukar from the business that you're getting and good employment. And often you're earning a salary or a dividend, which is far in excess what you will get in the marketplace. So honor the thing, look after it for the next generation, because everyone will benefit from this business. That's my bundle. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very, very much. There's some words of wisdom out there. I'm going to take questions, and I think a number of the issues you raised are so relevant, and we see that all the time in meeting with clients. You talk about generation issues. I mean, we can go into a meeting and you'll immediately know that there's problems with the different generations because they're talking at cross purposes. Somebody wants to go with option A and immediately contradicted by a younger generation, older generation to go in option B. And he's probably telling you that things are not as aligned as they should be. The issue of making a wrong choice. So I don't think we need to come across and immediately going to appoint someone from the outside. I've seen some disastrous appointments. And when you go across and where the family is probably in a rush to appoint someone for probably the good reasons, and if there's no culture fit, then you're going to have a problem with that. And that will always manifest itself a bit later. And we've seen some disastrous encounters in that respect, etc. I'm going to just pose one question to both AK and to Gaff. And let me go with AK first and then Gaff after that. If people, this audience is mainly accountants and lawyers, but there are some business people that have also joined, just from the names I can see on the screen. But I think accountants and lawyers, they have a great role to play in this. But my interaction or my view on this is existing accountants and lawyers are not marketing themselves adequately to go and play a role. So they're very keen in getting the audit out of the way or getting the one contract for the properties, but they're not engaging with their clients on this topic of succession planning. That's my experience, but it might be different with other people and other clients. So if there are people that want to appoint a consultant to help them to go through this process, what do you think they should be looking at in a consultant, and how should they go about in that process? AK first.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think when Gaff and I were in practice, that was the key, is that we looked ourselves, apart from auditors, as trusted business advisors. That's what we used to call ourselves, because you not only were doing the audit or the accounting work or the tax return, but you were getting involved in all aspects of the business. You were the sounding board for the founder or for the business. And I think that's if I advise to the younger accountants and lawyers is get involved, talk to your clients about more than just the audit or the contract. There's lots of other things they need to talk about, but that confidence comes over a period of time. You build a trust, and thereafter you will find that you will be able to do more work with that client and help those businesses into the future. As far as the client goes, he has to be able to have a connection with that person. That doesn't come the first meeting that you have. It comes over years. The guy builds up a trust. He builds up confidence with you. He then can call you in and talk about sensitive issues regarding his business or his family. And all I'm saying is, don't expect the first time you meet someone you're going to hit it off. You may not. It might take a bit of time, but build up a relationship with the one that you're using.
No, I agree with AK. I think you have to give value to the client. You have value add, and just doing the accounting and auditing is not enough. When you're doing a clearance meeting or your final meeting, you're going to introduce new things to the client and bring to his attention that what you have seen from the outside. You know the old saying, you get someone from the outside, you see something that you don't see inside. And that's really true. From the outside, you see things. So the outside accountant or auditor or the attorney can always bring to the attention of the client things that he hasn't seen in his business. And that's where the value add comes. And you've got to do that. The other drawback with some of our clients, and I think they're getting more up to date now with new technology, is that they audit and their balance sheets are done 15 months after the year, which is really, you're talking of history, where you should be talking of things that are current, live. So I think more and more clients are getting to that with technology and with new accounting systems and all. I think that's very important because you can make decisions that are there prevalent, not what happened 15 months ago. And I think you don't blame the auditors for that because the clients themselves are not ready. They're not ready. So value add to clients is very important. I think accountants and attorneys have a very, very big part to play to highlight the shortcoming in someone's business.
The question is, from a very, very prominent lawyer in Durban, is how do you influence the founder to change his or her archaic approach when it comes to governance? And let's go to Gaff first this time, and then we'll come to AK after that. Gaff.
Well, I think you have to show him the pros and cons of governance. And he has to set the example as being the head of the company and to show the people behind him or under him that governance is very, very important and that he's adhering to the rules of governance. There has to be discipline and everything must follow the governance of the company. So it's not going to be hard to convince him. It could be a one-to-one meeting with him and to show him the benefits that will flow out of the governance down the line.
Okay.
I agree with Gaff. It's not easy because, a founder ran his business himself. He was governance. He wasn't answerable to anyone. So for him, it's very, very difficult for governance rules and all those things to be put into place. But if you show him the benefits of it, and now the business is no more a one-man business, you've got family members, you've got outsiders in the business, you have to have good rules. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. And I think if you demonstrate that to him, most times over a period of time, it might not happen in the first meeting, but the guy normally sees the light and he changes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Go ahead, Zakaria.
I have, okay, I've been watching your slides, looking at the third generation businesses normally don't pass to the third generation, and it's so true. Alhamdulillah, in my case, 30 years in the business, I'm 51 years old. I'm the second generation, and my son that entered the business 2 or 3 years now. I basically, we put my brother and I, that we're my only sibling, was part of the business from day one when we started in the late 80s, early 90s, and and I can still remember, when we started, my late father said, "This is not your business. You're working here." And we started with 800 Rand a month salary, equating to roughly around just under 200 a week. And we had to, and from since then till now, that is how we manage and conduct our business. Both just one brother, so we don't have any grievances with who's taking more and just help yourself from the till and stuff. And I adopted the same thing with my two sons as well. My eldest son, he graduated in business admin. He's 25, 26 years old. He's married, alhamdulillah. My second son is 19 years old, and he joined a business about a year or two ago. And, one brother versus the other brother, obviously they're taken as employees because my brother is still a shareholder. I've got a 50% and my brother got a 50% share. And so my sons are seen as employees in the business, and but they take it as if they own. They put their whole heart, effort into the business as well. And by me doing that, they say all five fingers are not the same. And same thing applied to me and my brother. When my father saw the differences in myself and my brother, and all five fingers are not the same. So he identified the skill set of both of us, and we automatically place ourselves in certain positions in the business. I eventually became from hand-on operations. I was getting it was getting too monotonous for me, and I took a backseat on high level on the finance side, negotiations. So I continued that and my brother loves his operations. He liked to be with customers, and that was him, and he still like that today. So I see the very similar thing with my two sons. My eldest son always wanted to excel in education, and he wanted to continue his studies and whatever. And my younger son was just not interested in school. That was it. So at some point we had to you make up your mind you want to leave school. So he joined. But I'm seeing the other side of my second son. I am seeing the potential in what he can do. So the business has grown I belong to the automotive industry, and we had a single store. We've got a workshop, and since then we've grown to now we've got 3 workshops, tire fitment centers. We've even created a wholesale division network within our industry where we wholesale to other smaller tire dealers in the KZN area, and we've also tapped into other regions like the other provinces. So from a little family network, our business has grown. But where I find that now that I've taken kind of a partial backseat, I work from home remotely. I do everything from home. I hardly go to the offices, and I just look at the reports, and I'm content with where the sons have taken the business to from where I left. And so I don't question them on some of the things, but at a high level I get involved. And my concern after listening to what you guys what you are saying is where does the in terms of succession planning, I've only got 2 sons. My brother, he's got 3 daughters, but I don't see them being part of the business because once they get married, they're gone. So I'm trying to see how I can satisfy all parties, including my brother going forward. Because at some point he's going to say, I think I'm done now. Let me go. I don't know. What's going to happen there. Or he might want to say, I still want to be part of the, but let it carry on right till the end. Then the other, in terms of succession planning, my sons, just 2 sons. Where does it go from? Because I've seen businesses where they had no heirs for their business. They worked all their lives building this little empire, and come to the age of 80, they want to cut loose. They've got no family to take it over. Neither do they have any good potential buyers for their business, and he's left with a situation. So good business, but nobody interested. But that's a concern or fear I have taking this business to this level. What happens from here when I'm not, and where my kids will take it, and when we don't know. Allah knows our best because I don't have grandkids yet. But let's say at some point there's only 2, but anything can happen. What happens after that? Where continuation for legacy to carry on? How do we spread this?
Zakaria, thank you. I think you're raising some very important issues. It hasn't been covered, but part of succession planning is the disposal of the business in terms of planning for it. And I'm sure it comes up with your discussion when your consulting takes place. Let's go to Gaff just to have a look at that aspect that Zakaria has raised, and then AK after that.
Well, alhamdulillah, you got a good model going at the moment. I don't see a problem here. While everything is good, you can have a nice shareholders agreement with his brother, and as you said, he's already operating in the 3rd generation, which is excellent. And I'm sure he has set the ground rules properly right from the beginning. And I think we can see a fourth generation moving into that place, really, the way I look at it. So he shouldn't be too worried about what's going to happen. Put in a shareholders agreement in place with his brother, engage with his sons, what's going to happen going forward. And one day, even the two brothers might want to split. His two sons might want to split. So the ground rules will be laid by doing all that now, not to wait for the event to happen. So I think he's on the right track. He must expand. He must not worry about stopping. He's got a good growth potential. The potential of his two sons taking over the business as MDs is there. They can have more people behind them or under them as managers to grow more branches. So I think it's a good model at the moment, and you shouldn't be too concerned about what's going to happen in the future. As long as he puts the ground rules now, he sets the rules now with the sons, his brother, and the shareholders agreement obviously would cater for if his brother wants to retire, how he's going to retire, how he's going to get paid out, and things like that. Obviously, when someone wants to get paid out, the shareholders agreement was also taking into account the liquidity of the business. You don't want someone to go out and then the business suffers liquidity. So all that has to be taken into account in an agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I've got much more to add other than the fact that don't be concerned about what's going to happen in the future. I think the next generation will take care of that as long as it's a good business. And as I said earlier, don't sell the business because the next generation will need employment. And these family businesses are the ones that are going to create employment for the family. So don't be too quick to sell the business or close it down or whatever.
Just some comments here. This is from the representative of Essack. Excellent discussion and well done to the presenters. A lot of food for thought. There is a point that's made by someone. Firstly, two excellent presentations. My comment is training is also crucial. These skills are not always natural, and conduct at meetings and with staff is critical. Talking down to non-family members of staff is common. And they're talking about the dynamic. Someone mentioned it about social skills, people skills, and that can also have a major detrimental impact. So can Gaff and AK advise accountants how to remain relevant in addition to the mundane accounting and tax function, and how to open this up with clients without appearing rude or forward? I think it's in the context of succession planning, but perhaps maybe AK, if you can provide some advice with your experience on the point that's been raised by an accountant.
Yeah, I think Gaff covered that to some extent. Add value to your clients. If you add value, you talk value-added things to your clients, other than IFRS statements and auditing standards and things like that, you will find they'll start listening to you. You talk business issues, you talk, what makes that business tick. You do some research before you go to the meeting so that you understand in what market that business is competing. So then you talk relevant things with the client. The easy parts are just talk your auditing standards. I've picked up, this issue and that, and not material and all those things. Those are the easy parts. But often clients want to hear more than that. They want to hear about what I can do in my business to add value or to succeed. And I think Gaff covered that in one of the other questions as to what we can do as accountants when you're meeting clients.
Yeah, Shami, when the guys meet the client, and as AK said, I mean, the auditing and accounting issue is a minor issue because work is all done, and I get bored when I listen to accountants sit as a consultant. Accountants say last year's turnover was X and this year's turnover is Y, and really everyone can see that, but that's not important anymore. You need to do other things, and the value add is important. I think clients are looking for opportunities where there are more opportunities for them, and maybe they're so busy in their work. And with you as an accountant, you're going around all over. You see the opportunities. You see new areas that the client can move into. There are new tax incentives that clients don't even know of, and you have to bring it to their attention that these are the incentives you could move into. You can go into certain zones, economic zones, where you only have to pay 15% tax. I mean, if you're based in Durban and you have a factory in Richards Bay, what a pleasure. You pay 15% in the special zone and things like that, and bring it to the attention of the clients. All these issues, the tax incentives, the labor incentives, the incentives that were offered with TERS and COVID. I think everyone knew about that. But you talk about other things but auditing and accounting. Maybe you should spend 20% of your time discussing the final accounts and then the rest of the time on opportunities and value adds.
My question, what are some of the challenges experienced with daughters who were in the business with their father and now marry? I think Zachariah has mentioned something to that basis. And she wishes for her husband to be in the business to safeguard her interest. How can the husband's introduction be smoothly integrated? I think this is a very relevant issue. It's common. I think no one had the guts to ask that. But when daughters come in or when they go out and the son-in-laws come across, that's when the conflict actually takes place. But very relevant. And let's go with AK first and then Gaff after that. AK.
Shabir, this is a real curveball. It's relevant. It's a difficult one. People get very sentimental about this thing, very emotional, that no son-in-laws must come into the business, all those sort of issues. But, you have to have an open mind and you have to look at each case on its own merit as to who the candidate is. And the question was at the end, look after my interest. I mean, a husband is not coming into the business to look after interest. He's coming there to, work in the business. Looking after the interest comes in with the shareholders agreement and all the governance that we spoke about. Is that if she's a shareholder, then she is a shareholder. And, all the governance issues, the shareholders agreement should cover her for that. She should be invited to AGMs and, discussing accounts, whatever. But her husband is not getting into the business to look after her interest. I mean, if that is the thing, then you're already starting on the wrong foot.
Yeah.
No, I think it's important that if the son-in-law is coming with expertise that you don't even have in your own business, then you must take him in with open arms, because he's going to improve your business. He's going to enhance your business. But he's coming in, as AK said, to look after one's interest, and he doesn't have any expertise. Then it's not on for me. I mean, he must add value. He must be able to earn his bit with performance. And I think one of the ways we have to resolve this thing is that we in the Indian community don't have the culture of paying dividends. And I think we have to introduce that. People have to. There are passive shareholders who don't get income and they're shareholders of companies, especially daughters. And I think it's time that, I know the tax is the issue. You're going to pay your 28%, and then you're going to pay your transfer duty tax, another 20-odd%. And eventually it's like a 42% tax. People don't want to pay their tax. But I think once you have the culture of declaring dividends, people will be satisfied that they're getting a fair share for their investment in the company. And I don't think a very important point that AK raised, and I might as well just say it here instead of saying it in my closing remark, is that small businesses provide all the employment in the country. And you read about this all the time. And yes, we cannot close our businesses or sell our businesses to big corporates, because we need to employ our people, not only our children, but our community members. We have to employ them. Even the underprivileged, we have to employ them. And we are creating the employment. So let's not sell our good businesses.
There is a comment here, and it's possibly linked up to this. If you look at successful startups that become large corporations, how can you transition a family business into an independent standalone company? Or is this by definition not possible? Because small businesses to become big, and saying, how do you do it? It might have been covered, but let me give an opportunity to Gaff this time first and then AK after that, if you want to answer that. Gaff?
No, I mean, every business will aspire to become big, and every business wants to grow and grow. And people do talk about listing as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think you can grow, and there must be no limits to growth. I didn't hear the other part of the question. Maybe, AK, you can just explain what they exactly wanted. But to me, a company must be able to grow and must aspire to grow, yes.
Yeah, I think, most of our small businesses, there's a lot of them that have grown into big businesses. And Shabir, some of our mutual clients have started with humble beginnings and today are huge, huge businesses. So it happens all the time. As long as they're running the thing properly, there's governance, there's profitability, and the individuals that are involved in the business are taking their business seriously. I always say that. Take your business seriously. It's not a part-time job. Then you will see the growth. And I think, as a community, we've done very well. You see it every day. is someone started off with humble beginnings, and today it's a multi-million rand or hundreds of million rand turnover business.
I think it's very relevant what's being said. And for me, it's all about governance also. Sometimes people feel that they don't want to spend and what's this King 4 kind of issues. And believe me, it might be expensive, but in the longer run for sustainability, especially the point that was raised by one of our speakers, that the businesses don't last after 3 generations. And the question that must come on the mind is, where are you in that process and how can it last for the 4th, 5th, and 6th generation? And that question needs to come in. I think I must thank the speakers, but before I do that, just some closing comments and some ideas on the way forward. And perhaps while we're talking about businesses, just each of the speakers also talk about succession planning for accountants and lawyers. I know SAICA has got some kind of document which you engage with other accountants and keep it in place. If you've got any ideas on that, please. But concluding remarks, Gaff first.
You talk about accountants and attorneys, and I think it's an important area. I find a lot of sole practitioners around, especially in the attorney world. And sometimes one wonders what is a succession plan for them. And I see in the attorney world, lots of people who serve articles for attorneys leave attorneys and go and open their own offices. And I sometimes wonder why they can't become partners with the existing offices and grow the businesses. You see some nice big accounting firms, but you don't see a lot of big attorney firms. So I think there's something to take home for attorneys to think about it. They have to think about their succession plan. If somebody falls, pass on immediately, lots of monies are sitting in trust accounts, and a lot of open files. And who takes over? What is a succession plan? And things like that. I recall many years ago, I approached an individual accountant to come and join us. And it took him 3 weeks to come back to me. And then he said to me, I don't want to join you guys because I'm a sole practitioner and I'm happy. But when I die, I want you to buy my practice. So I said, thank you very much. I'm not an insurance company. You close the chapter there. So yes, on our topic, today's topic, I think succession planning, changes are very important in life. One has to change with time, change with the flow of the country as well. And I think succession planning, by doing it and having a succession plan, is a change. It's a change that we all have to accept. A simple example is that where are all the jewelry shops in Grey Street today? Where are all the tailors in Grey Street today? They have changed. They've gone to the malls. They've gone to Gateway. They're going to Pavilion. If they didn't go, they would have been dead. So I think change is very good. And all our businesses must change. Look at a business plan. Look at succession planning. And really grow your business. By all means, grow your business. And don't be afraid to take non-family members into your business as well. Because we're getting more and more qualified people, highly qualified technology guys, digital guys. And I think we must take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaff. AK?
Yeah, regarding succession plan in accountants and lawyer firms, you have to have an open mind, bring in the younger generation, not only as article clerk, serve the articles and off you go. Keep the ones that you feel that can work with you and become your fellow partners. And you encourage that, and you will find that those practices will grow, and it takes care of succession. If you don't do that, you will leave a sole practitioner, and as Gav said, you then the family has to find someone to buy your practice out. So again, keep an open mind and make sure that we've got talent, nurture it, and make them partners with you in your practice. Closing remarks, I think succession plan, I think what we mentioned is vital. I think the founders should make sure that there's a lot of good talent coming in through their children. They get educated and they bring in a new focus in the business, especially with technology. You find the older generations, I don't blame them because they were born before computers. They don't understand the technology side of the business as much as the younger generation. So they often close shop when it comes to those discussions, instead of encouraging the younger generation to look at opportunities in those like online shopping and those sort of things, and see how you can expand the business and grow the business into areas that you didn't get involved in. So change is inevitable. If you don't change, you're going to die. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of businesses, that they don't adapt to the new environment, they don't succeed. You have to change, and change for the betterment, and make sure that you use your succession plans in the right direction and encourage good talent to come through. Jazakallah.
But I think the discussions has been absolutely fantastic. There's very high valued issues that have come out. We will make the recording available, and I think it should be compulsory viewing. We're going to take it across for our clients and say, please have a look at this and share it with the family. And you guys have come at very short notice on a very, very important topic. I do believe that from a community point of view, we've got a big role to play, even as an association of the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers. And from this, I'm already getting comments coming across to say, listen, you should have a separate seminar on succession planning for accountants and lawyers specifically, and get accountants and lawyers to speak on this where they are in full-time practice, etc. And for me, I must kind of indicate that this topic was something that we thought about at Amal. I think we were not disappointed. We've actually had one of the highest attendances at any seminars that have taken place. And for me, it just shows how relevant this is. And there might be a follow-up on a number of the issues that has been raised. So if anybody do want to contact the Amal offices for the recording, if it's not available on Twitter, or if you can't access it, please let us know. But Gaff and AK, thank you very, very much for giving up your time on a Saturday morning. I think it was a brilliant kind of session. I've actually made notes for myself on a number of issues. I'm going to take all your advice and I'm going to speak to the clients when we're engaging with them on banking activities. So that's the issue that I got from today's session. But I do believe it's kind of relevant. And I think people start with your succession plannings now. Go across, engage with your accountants, lawyers, contact us if you'll need further details, and let's take it across. I do serve on some of the clients' kind of pseudo boards. I can't become a director, obviously. But we've added value. We've added value to the process to bring in some of the professional approaches, some of the thoughts and ideas. You may think that we're not adding value, but believe me, when you leave from there, you know you put something onto the table, and then it's for them to take it forward from there. So to the people that have attended, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Please join Amal if you're not a member. And we look forward to your participation. We are having a seminar on the whistleblowing. It's the Public Disclosures or the Disclosures Act. I'm calling it the whistleblowers legislation, taking place, I think, at the middle of June. And after that, on stress and burnout in the workplace, that's taking place over the next 4 weeks at Amal. And there is something that has come across from POPI. You know, the POPI legislation goes into effect on the 1st of July. And there's been a request for how does POPI affect smaller businesses. So hopefully we can arrange something, and please just look at social media for the invitations. So from my side, it's 11:27. We're not disappointing anyone, and we're finishing 3 minutes early. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you for attending.